Hey guys, welcome back to the process. Today, I want to talk about regrets. The reason that I want to talk about regrets is because I think that they are such an important lesson for us. So much so, in fact, that I think I do my best to look at them as lessons. And so I want to dive into it and talk about what that's looked like for me. This is top of mind for me right now because I had an opportunity to essentially rectify a regret that I had for a few years now. And it felt amazing. And I want to reflect on that because it wasn't by any means a massive thing, but it's a good lesson as to how it can apply to absolutely anything that you take on. So, just to give a bit of context, let's talk about what it was. A few years ago, I was on a trip to Sydney with my husband and my parents around my birthday. And one day we decided to do the Spit to Manly walk. If you haven't done it and you're in Sydney at any point, you have to do it. It's on the northern beaches. It starts in Mossman, and you walk along the cliffs and everything until you get to Manly. It's absolutely amazing. I used to do it all the time when I lived there. And so, of course, when my parents were here, I wanted to take them on that walk. Towards the end of it, you come out to this incredible clearing. I mean, there's a couple of them, but I have one specifically in my mind that has just an amazing little beach. It's quiet, it's secluded. You've got beautiful, crystal clear water and nice waves, like small waves where it's actually nice to swim in. You don't need to be worried about sharks because the water's so clear and you can see everything. So we came up to that area and we were probably about maybe 30 minutes of a walk from the end. Right away, as soon as we got there, my husband was like, "Yeah, I'm jumping in. That looks amazing." And my dad and I both wanted to jump in too, but I instantly was pulled into worrying about the logistics. So I didn't have a change of clothes. I think I had I must have had a swimsuit, but I didn't have a different change of clothes. I didn't have a towel. I obviously only had my one pair of shoes. And I immediately started thinking about, oh, if I go, then my feet are going to get all sandy and I don't have a towel to dry off. So my feet are going to be wet. I'm going to be wet for the rest of the walk. That doesn't really sound nice. And I essentially talked myself out of doing it. I I just didn't do it. And I stood there on the side on the beach and I watched while my husband went for a swim. And then we continued walking. My dad and I both said we should have gone for the swim. Both of us said that. We regretted it for the rest of the day. And I personally have regretted it many, many times since then. And again, this isn't a big thing. It's not like it was a life changing situation necessarily. It was just going for a swim at the beach. But the lesson for me is that I had and still probably have, I mean, not probably, I do have a fear of being uncomfortable or of the implications of that discomfort. And so instead of pushing through it to get to the thing that I absolutely love, which is swimming in the ocean, almost nothing makes me feel instantly as good as when I dive into the water in the ocean and just fully submerge myself. And oh man, I just absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things ever. But I talked myself out of it that day because it didn't feel super easy. There were all these little roadblocks that I created in my mind as to why I couldn't do it. And then this happened a bunch more times. I mean, the amount of times that it's happened because I'm weird with sand. I don't like having sand on my feet. And if I'm wearing runners, and anyway, it's just a whole thing. But there's the story, right? It all comes back to the story of this is too hard. This is too inconvenient. And so I'm not going to do it. But then I had this massive regret for not doing it. And especially not being able to do it with my husband and with my dad. Like, who knows the next time I'll be in Sydney with my parents, all of these factors where I could have, but I chose not to. Last week, we were in Noosa for my birthday and it was amazing. We went for a walk along this path. I didn't really know where the path was going to take us, actually. We just had to look for parking forever. And once we found it, we were like, let's just get on the path and we'll walk and we'll eventually get into the main street and go get something to eat. But while we were walking, we came out to a very similar clearing. It instantly reminded me of that day back in Sydney 3 years ago. And the exact same thought came up. I really want to go for a swim. And this was on my birthday as well. So I was really wanting to, have a great day, seize the moment, whatever. But the exact same thought came up of, I want to go for a swim. And then immediately after that, well, I don't have my swimmers with me. They're in the car. They're all packed away. I don't have a towel out. I'm going to have to dig through everything to get it out. But this time I noticed the thoughts that came after the initial desire. And I said, no, we're going to do this different, because remember that regret that you felt? You're not going to feel that today. You're going to do it even though it's inconvenient, even though there's a few roadblocks. And again, this is not a massive thing. But for me, I guess I shouldn't even say that it wasn't a massive thing, because that's me downplaying it. It was a big thing for me, because it was a big enough thing for me to regret it multiple times, have the thought multiple times that I wish that I had taken that action. And I bet there is some version of that for you as well. Some sort of story, something that you wish that you had done, but you didn't do it for whatever reason, whatever excuse that you gave yourself that felt like it mattered in the moment. But looking back on it, you can see how silly it was that you didn't take that action, because look at what you could have had. For me, it would have been a beautiful memory of swimming in the water with my husband, with my dad. And instead I sat on the sidelines and just sat and we just watched my husband go for this beautiful swim. So on my birthday last week, I said, no, I'm not going to follow that same pattern, because I already know what the result of that is going to be. I have a very clear understanding of that. If I take the same action that I took last time, I'm going to get the same result, which is what? Regret. I don't want that for myself anymore, especially not for this, because I've thought about it so many times. So we went for breakfast, and then I made sure that I said to my husband, I want to go for a swim. I'm making this happen today because it's really important to me. We came back. I had to dig through everything. It was annoying because it was at the bottom. Of course, it was at the very bottom of all of our bags and everything. But I did it. I went for a swim, and the joy that I felt in the water was unmatched, not just because of the fact that I absolutely love jumping into the water, like I mentioned before, but it was the fact that I pushed through that moment of discomfort and that moment of all those excuses. I didn't let myself fall into those excuses. And I was like, nah, thank you for saying all of that, but that's not what I'm doing this time. I'm going to go in this other direction. And it was amazing. It was so amazing. When I did this, it reminded me of a quote that one of my favorite online creators says. Her name is Emma Carey. If you don't follow her on Instagram, I think it's M_Carey, Carey, I believe. Her book's right here, right there on my shelf. And she's amazing. And the quote that she always uses is, if you can, you must. And for her, if you don't know her story, she went skydiving in Switzerland 10 plus years ago and actually fell out of the sky because her parachute didn't deploy properly. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that happened, but I don't need to go into that right now. But essentially, she fell out of the sky and hit the ground, but she survived. And she was paralyzed from the waist down. And one of the things that she wrote in her diary in one of those first days is, if you can, you must, because she went from being able to move and do everything that she wanted to not being able to do any of those things and not knowing if she ever would be able to do any of those things again. And she actually has been able to walk because her motor neurons didn't get totally separated. So she's still able to walk. She just can't feel anything. Anyway, go watch her story and learn about her because she's so inspiring. But she had this quote, if you can, you must. And when I learned about her and I heard about her story, I was so inspired by these words because it's so true. If you have the capacity and the capability to do something, you must do it. Because imagine if you wake up one day and you don't have that capacity anymore, or we don't even know when our last day is going to be, really. And so she had these made into little pendants on necklaces, which I have right here. And I use that a lot as a reminder for myself when I get into a situation where there's something that I want to do, but there's some sort of a roadblock or excuse essentially as to why I shouldn't do it. If you can, you must. And last week when I went for a swim, it came up again because I did it. And it was such a beautiful reminder of how big or small, taking that step and doing the thing, even if there's all the reasons in the world why you shouldn't, doing it anyway because you can is the most incredible gift that you can give yourself. The reason that I say that is because you're showing yourself how capable you actually are. In my example here of going for a swim, it's just my capacity to search for my swimmers in the bottom of a bag, and be okay with getting sandy. But it's not just that. If you don't trust yourself to sit in that discomfort or push yourself or back yourself to step into those moments where you feel uncomfortable, how the hell are you going to do it when it's in a much bigger and higher stakes situation? How are you going to be able to make that decision? How are you going to be able to trust yourself if you have to step into, say, a public speaking event, or maybe you have to deliver a presentation at work, or maybe you need to advocate for your needs to your boss. Maybe you are in an interview asking for the salary that you know you deserve. All of that is uncomfortable in all different facets. If you don't practice pushing through that discomfort in the smaller moments, you're not going to be able to do it in the bigger moments. Or it's going to feel way harder because it's like the first time you've ever done it. Just like how when you go to the gym, if you were to walk into the gym and pick up a 50-kilo weight and try and push it above your head, that's going to be pretty freaking hard. Whereas if you go into the gym and you pick up 3 kilos and you practice that for a while and you're like, oh, okay, this is starting to feel a little bit easier. This is starting to not feel as scary or uncomfortable. Now I can step up to the 5 kilos, to the 8 kilos, to the 10 kilos. It's the exact same principle. All kinds of growth is uncomfortable. Any situation where you have a thought of wanting to do something or having a desire to change something about your life, your job, your relationship, the first step to that change is going, where I am right now is comfortable and safe because I've been doing the same thing for as long as I can remember, but I'm not happy doing the same thing over and over again. I'm not happy. I have all these regrets. I have all these complaints. I have all these stories that I tell when I talk to my friends of how I'm not happy with this thing. I'm not happy with that thing. The only way to get to the other side of that is by having the willingness to be uncomfortable and to sit in that discomfort. So I look at this opportunity, this example of me deciding to go for a swim, even though it was potentially inconvenient, as me taking a step and practicing that whole motion and trusting that the more that I do that on a smaller scale, the easier and more capacity I'm going to have to be able to do it on a much bigger scale. And if you can, you must. I think it's an amazing reflection. I think we owe it to ourselves, honestly, I think. I mean, you can stay in the same situation that you've always been in if you want to. And if that's what you want, if that is genuinely what you want, then great. You've made it. You've made it to the life that you always dreamed of. But if there is any part of you, even a little inkling of a part of you that wants more, well, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, because otherwise you just keep doing the same stuff. And you cannot do the same stuff and expect something different to happen. It just isn't possible. You cannot eat the same foods. You cannot move your body the same way. You cannot talk in the same way and use the same language that you've always used, work in the same job that you've always worked in, and expect to have a completely different outcome. I wish that we could, but life doesn't work that way. You have to get uncomfortable, and it sucks. But the joy and the pride and the growth that you're going to feel on the other side of it is pretty amazing. this has been a really good reminder for me, because going for a swim is not a huge amount of discomfort, but what it is me recognizing the pattern as it's happening. That's really what has to happen, is you have to be able to kind of see the pattern that you're in as you're in it, and then go, okay, what's the smallest action that I could take that's going to contradict this current loop that I'm always in and that I've been in for the last 20 years? Is there some sort of small thing that I could do? Maybe, if I wasn't quite ready to go for a full-on swim, maybe it's just walking down to the water and putting my feet in and going up to my knees, right? That's still doing something differently because I have to take my socks and shoes off. I'm going to get my feet sandy. I don't have a towel. For me, like, that still would be a level of discomfort, but it would be a smaller level of discomfort. So for you, you might have to start that small, and that's okay. Like I said, you go to the gym for the very first time, you're not going to be picking up a 50-kilo weight. You're going to be picking up 3 kilos, or you might even just do body weights. That might be your starting point, and that's okay. That is absolutely okay, as long as there is some level of discomfort, because discomfort is the path to growth. Discomfort is the path to all of the things that you want. And the more that you can allow yourself to sit in that feeling and to go, hey, even to celebrate it, to go, hey, I'm uncomfortable again. Sweet. That must mean that I'm pushing myself. I am doing something differently. That must mean I'm about to grow, or I'm already growing by allowing myself to sit here. I think it's one of the most helpful reframes that we can have. And I'm saying this honestly as a reminder to myself as much as I'm saying it to you, the listener, because even when I've done this a lot of times now, and this example of going for a swim still came up for me. I still had to go through it. I still had to put in that practice, because it doesn't end. You don't magically get to a point where you never feel uncomfortable anymore, because the moment you don't feel uncomfortable anymore means that you are stagnant and you're no longer growing. So it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing process. But if you can learn to celebrate those moments when you get into that discomfort and go, oh, this is a moment where I am growing. I am choosing to show up a little bit differently for myself. A 1% difference. That's all it takes. Consistent 1% differences, and you will exponentially improve and change your life. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me a DM on Instagram. Leave a reply on this video. If you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, I would be so appreciative. I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in, listening to my thoughts and my reflections as I am going through this exact same process as you. Thank you so much for being here, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.